Hello, everybody. It's Heather and Deb here, and this is the Skeptic and the Mystic. And today we are going to be talking about sound healing, what it is, how can it help. Deb has been diving into doing sound healings and actually has started to do some with people and with groups. And so we wanted to talk about it because I know for me, being the skeptical person that I am, when I first heard about like sound healing, I'm like, come on, like really? Like, is that really going to be able to do something? And I know logically when I think about it, like if I turn on classical music, I feel a very different way than if I turn on rap or like heavy metal, right? You know, or country or whatever. Like all those different things create different feelings in our body. So I know logically it makes sense that it can do something, but the healing part can be fascinating and like sometimes confusing. So I'm glad that you're exploring this and can share this with us and break it down. So let's just start off with like, what specifically is sound healing?
Okay, so sound healing, at least, I mean, there's obviously, as with most things, there's a variety of ways that people do it, but specifically what I have been working with is the sound, often you'll hear it called a sound bath, right? Mm-hmm. So I do with the crystal balls, which are, this camera always, I have those crystal balls that are right behind me there. There's a little gong, I got some drums, things like that. Sometimes you'll see people do them with the Tibetan bowls as well, so that those would be made out of a metal, which I will have some of those in the near future. But the idea being, if anyone's ever gone to, sometimes you'll see them offered at yoga studios or whatever, and you can also look them up on Spotify. But when you hear it, it's more like, you'll just hear like the dong and then a long resonant kind of, frequency. And it's obviously, yes, in some ways it's simple in that it works in the way that music does to kind of relax the mind. It can help if you're just trying to get into a state of deep meditation. And it's great for people that think, I can't freaking meditate. That sounds horrible. I can't sit in silence. It kind of gives your brain something to follow. So it can work just as simply as that. Typically it's in a setting where, I've done them outside. I've done them in like a gym and just do everything in candlelight, but you'll often find them in some sort of relaxing setting. So when you're the recipient of the sound healing or the sound bath, you would just come in either laying down, you can sit up, you really can just be any way that feels comfortable for you. You're just there to take it in. But your skeptical brain will definitely be changed, which I think you aren't too hard to sway in this regard. But when you think about sound, it's vibration. Right. And I don't have that quote written down from Nikola Tesla, but essentially everything is vibration. Right.
And like, if you want to understand, now I forget it. Yes.
You want to understand the universe. How does it go? I just saw it earlier. But anyway, everything is always vibrating, literally everything. So your skin cells, yes, obviously, but even, my computer is on like a wooden bamboo lap desk. Seems pretty darn solid, right? But no, that thing is also matter that is vibrating. So everything's working in vibration. The way that sound baths and sound therapy get into the body and create the medicinal effect is that essentially our home state is harmony, right? Like we always want to be in harmony with the universe, harmony with nature. And when you take a nice pure sound like these crystal bowls will make, I should have gotten one ready to maybe play. So normally you wouldn't keep these, I wouldn't normally play these handheld. There are some that you can. The Tibetan ones are a little bit better for that. But like you would knock it, and you're creating a sound, right? It's probably obnoxiously loud if anybody's listening. Like,
oh, that's good.
Yeah, in headphones. So you're making that pure sound. These particular bowls are actually, because you can see they're all like the colors of the chakras. They're aligned with the chakras. This one would be aligned with the heart chakra. So that, I guess it also does relate to hertz. So heart chakra, I had to keep notes, is thought to operate at 594 hertz. So essentially that'll be bringing out that tone. In some circles, there's mantras that would align. I don't have those memorized off the top of my head either. But when you're doing that, you're basically bringing yourself into resonance with that pure vibrational frequency. And then you're creating that alignment. You're working with, we're just basically big walking bags of water, right? So you're working with all the water in your body, and it's moving in through your cells. And yay, you found it. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Yeah. So I'm like a rambler. Anyway, that it works really to just get into your cells. But I have some cool stats that I looked up. You'll have to forgive me because I have to look at notes. But when you think about it in comparison to when we heal ourselves with drugs or medicine or pills, right? How medicine and pills work is that they are encoded with essentially a message. And that message is also vibration. It's just packed into this little medicinal pill and put into your body. And how that then communicates with your cells is basically with like a combustion reaction, right? Like it has to, through thermodynamics, break down, then send those signals. And when you take a pill and you have to go through all of that chemical change, you're wasting like 98% of the energy in that message to get about a 1 or 2% return. Versus if you take the vibration of sound, so that pill also has a vibrational quality to it, right? The medicine is also a vibration. So it's kind of a little bit hard to explain. There's a really great Bruce Lipton video on YouTube, actually, that explains it quite well, because he's very good at taking these very high level scientific things and bringing them down so normal people can understand. I'm not as good, but if you think about, the speed with which a pill or a drug can translate its message, can move its chemicals into the body. Science has shown that that's like about 1 foot per second, which sounds kind of fast, I guess, right? But then if you think about sound vibration and the resonance vibrations, they move at 186,000 miles every second. So ridiculously much more faster. And then that process, that thermochemical reaction where all that energy is wasted, when you're talking about a sound wave just moving in that quickly, and also there's no reaction, there's no wasted energy. So like 100% of that energy is moving exponentially faster. I don't know the mathematical difference between 1 foot per second and 186,000 miles per second. But when you think about it that way, it kind of makes sense to me. And then beyond that, you're encouraging all your cells to get back into resonance with nature, to that 100% pure, healthy vibration, right? And you're doing that with no side effects. Because let's not forget that when you're taking a pill or you're taking some sort of drug, number one, you're only treating a symptom. So we'll dive into that as well. But you're just treating a symptom. You're wasting a ton of energy. And within that reaction, you're creating a lot of other reactions. And that's why drugs have side effects. Whereas when you're using sound medicine, you're healing all the cells simultaneously. Yes, it's going to go to the cells that deeply need healing, but it's also helping all the healthy cells stay and remain in resonance, right? So I have a cool little, like, if you think about harmony is healing, right? And then disharmony is where disease is created. And so when we can use, dis-ease, disharmony.
I don't think that but it's dis-ease. The body is like not
lack of ease.
Right? We're just like, oh, disease, instead of thinking dis-ease. Like, oh, wait a minute. I remember talking to my brother about that. He's like, I never thought about it like that.
Totally.
Creating dis-ease in the body.
Yes. Which Louise Hay is another one that's really, really big in that. But if you think about, so the sound waves are coming in and these are pure, healthy vibrational energy. Our natural state, nature, is always wanting to be in harmony. So that's always going to win. Like the disharmony, the dis-ease, it's chaotic. It's not how our cells naturally want to be. So they are going to gravitate toward the healing energy. And when that's brought in, they just naturally want to align. Like that's what resonance really means, right? Like there's two things. If you take two things that are vibrating, there's also plenty of experiments you can look up on YouTube where, like if you do the thing just with a wine glass and you shake the water in one wine glass, but you don't do it with the water in the second, they do actually, tuning forks will do the same thing. They will tune to each other because the vibrations influence the things next to it, and they want to be in resonance. So they will start to vibrate together. They don't want to be in disharmony. So the harmony will win. So that's kind of the magic, non-scientific, scientific explanation.
I'm sure, I'm sure you've seen, but anybody who's watching, there's so many videos that you can find of somebody who if you put some sand, right, on a metal disc, right, and you stir it in a certain way, or you hit it in a certain way, it creates these resonances, these frequencies, and patterns form within the pan that moves, and it's phenomenal because you're like, what? Nothing, nobody's blowing on it or anything. It's literally just frequencies. Right?
There is an exhibit at the Arizona Science Center. My daughter, I haven't gone there with her a long time because she's getting older now, but she always loved it. And I think it's like these little shavings that are on a board, and then you pick these different songs and it plays the song, and they're like popular songs, whatever that and then you see how it makes the pattern shake out. It's fascinating. So it's like the visualization of the song, just how it's making the little things, line up on the table.
Yeah. Okay, so you just something for me, music, I'm sensitive Sally. Everything impacts me, sight, sound, all that kind of stuff. And it does for most people, but a lot of people don't pay attention to it. But I can hear certain sounds. If I hear somebody driving by and they have their bass blaring, right? And the music is this hardcore, and I'm not saying that all rap is bad, right? But I'm just saying this that has very negative lyrics to it, right? That I can feel myself just start to literally contract, right?
Right.
But I wonder how with certain people, certain cultures, certain societies, we all have music that defines certain cultures, right? You look at the Indian culture, the music is very different than, backwoods Alabama culture. Right? And so this is that you grew up with that frequency, you're used to that frequency, it's a familiar frequency. Right? And so that's what you where your baseline is. If that would if it does that because that's what you're used to, or is it I don't know what I know the question and understand in my head, but I don't.
I mean, that would be a super interesting study just to see how a predominant style of music that you listen to may influence how, what manifests within your body or your life. I don't know the answer to that, but I do. There is something to the idea of the intention behind it. So intention matters. There's lots of studies that even say, even with words, right? And that's why mantras or om or there's all these different sounds you can make and create reactions within your body. But there's a study that when I was kind of putting some notes together for this, I did see a study that was something about even just the intention you have behind words that you say or think. You can say the exact same words, but the intention behind them will change how they influence your cells. So perhaps, nobody quote me on this because I'm not a scientist and this is only a theory. But, when you're talking about the music and how different styles of music feel pleasing to some people and displeasing to others, I think there's probably something to the intention or even the perceived intention of the lyrics, because I'm with you in that, or not the lyrics, but the song in general, the whole piece. Right. But I enjoy rap music because I think it's fun. Sometimes I like the beats and stuff, but sometimes I hear the words and I'm like, oh, that's pretty misogynistic. But I'll just choose to be I'm not going to let that part of the message kind of, land with me or whatever. I don't care for heavy metal music. That just doesn't sound good to me. I would not turn that on and be like, this sounds awesome. But depending on my mood, I might have some rage I want to work through, and that might help.
So an interesting thing about sound is that back in October, when I was at the beach with my brother and his wife and boys, they were 11 and 9 at the time, I think, just being boys, like and they make noise. Like these boys are auditory processors, right? And I'm always like, oh my gosh, stop it. Stop talking, stop making noise come out of your mouth. But we were staying in this small little bungalow. And so everybody's just on top of each other, which is great and not great all at the same time, And I was like, what if we just put on some music to calm them down? And so we put on some Native American flute music, and those boys just sat at the table and played a game together. It was like this blanket for them and just totally calmed them down. Yeah, it was so fascinating to watch.
Well, Yeah. Certainly works with pets and plants too. I mean, there's lots of studies where you can see playing music for plants. I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago too, but playing I think there's perhaps it's with an apple. There's some study that's gotten pretty popular. Just in I think they took an apple and cut it in half, and there's one I think where they spoke horrible words and spoke loving words, and I think there's one where they played rage metal and classical, and just saw how it impacted how that thing developed, right? How that plant or that apple handled it. And it's fascinating because plants will thrive with soothing music. There's actually a playlist on Spotify that's called Music for Plants. And no joke, I do play it sometimes because it's just heal. It sounds like meditation music. It's nice. It's good for me too.
There's on Alexa, because if I say her name, she will start. But if I ask her when I leave, I always ask her to play "Calm My Dog." There's a "Calm My Dog" station too, and it is classical, stuff. But they say it's scientifically proven to calm your dog. So,
but it does because it soothes. So there's lots of studies also about sound therapy, how it can help with anxiety. It can help with arthritis. It can help with a ton of ailments. We were talking about a study that I just sent you that link and now I can't find it. Okay, so you can find a TED Talk online for anybody that's listening and wants to look it up, but it's called Shattering Cancer with Resonant Frequencies. So it's Dr. Anthony Holland. It is a fascinating TED Talk, but he has done a lot of research on the power of sound to basically blast cancer cells and kill cancer cells without chemo, and there's studies where men have been healed from prostate cancer. Interestingly, there's also reports of, I'm not going to go down a conspiracy theory rabbit hole here, but there are reports of studies that showed, I don't know, many, many years ago, I don't have the stats written down, but doctors that did find ways to cure some pretty serious diseases using sound. And then those studies got squashed by pharma. And I'm trying to tread carefully, but you can find that stuff.
I use that Healy, the frequency device thing, right? And when I started looking into that, because it is all frequencies, going back to all this stuff got just totally covered up, because why would we want to heal people? That's not a good business model, right? So it does there is a lot of stuff. I want to read this. I totally forgot about this until you just started saying about playing for things. But my friend sent me this. She's like, this is the kind of news that I like to see. Of course, why is it not going to show it now? I hate when your phone does this. But it's all about that cows like classical music.
Oh, really?
says a group of elite classical musicians recently performed outdoor concerts for the local cows and people in a village south of Copenhagen. It was a result of the partnership between farmers and the nearby Scandinavian Cello School, which teaches young musicians from around the world. And basically, he said that the animals appeared to love it, rushing towards the musicians when they arrived. And they said, like, they all started, and it won't pull up on that picture, but Dvorak, like when they started playing, and I might not be pronouncing that right, but when they started playing Dvorak, like the cows left. Like they didn't like his music at all. And it's funny
because I don't know who that is.
Classical, it's Dvorak, I think it is, Dvorak. And I was like, I asked, my device to play it, and I just didn't work. And I was like, I don't like this either. Like, I can't, it's more like movie soundtrack type, like it was like high crescendos and then low. And it was like, too much. I was like, I need to go back to the Native American flute music.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do all respond to it. And I mean, if everything is that frequency, even though the skeptical me is like, come on, because I've been so conditioned, right, to think otherwise. But it's like, why not, like, let's get back to nature. Like, we go into nature and think about being in the woods and hearing the water, right, streams of water and birds chirping. How we're just like, then you get in the city and you're like, oh, like, and there's an excitement about being in the city and the energy of the city, but there's still like a contraction where when you're in nature, it's like, oh, okay.
Right.
And you've been conditioned to be a city person, right? And it's uncomfortable hearing the sounds of nature because you're so used to the frequency of the city.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. Yeah, if you're used to it. Yeah, I mean, I've had, even when I've done the sound baths, it's common for people to, it does release something. And I don't know whether or not you're used to hearing it or not used to hearing it, but, people will often they'll cry, right? Like they'll just, and they don't even necessarily know why. I'm like, that's cool. Just let it wants to come out, let it out. Some people will get really, really hot in the middle of it. Some people will get really, really cold. Like, it's just like your body is just adjusting, releasing, and moving stuff through. What's cool with these, like, I like the with the crystal balls, I don't know, to me this makes perfect sense. But how I was like running the thing around the bowl. So since those are all tuned to different chakras, and there's different ways that people might give a sound healing, but if there's a particular area that the group is asking for, like I did one that was focused around the Aries new moon last month, and we really wanted to work with like solar plexus energy, so we did a lot with that frequency. But part of what I do, like if you run the little mallet around the bowl counterclockwise, it's kind of the intention of release, right? So we're unwinding. The sound will be the same. You don't really notice a difference in the sound. But again, I think that goes with intention, that then we're releasing the stuck energy, right? Like we're kind of letting it out. And then I like to do in the middle, I have this wave drum. I'm going to do like all kinds of little demos here. This one is really cool because like you were talking about the ocean, right? And this like makes sounds like the ocean waves. Which is pretty cool. So I like to do it so that if that's our intention for that particular session, we do a lot of the releasing, and I do everything going counterclockwise for the first part of the session. Do like some drum beats. Drum beats will help. Like I have like a buffalo drum, or I have that drum there. Help kind of move other stuck stuff out of there. That's the principle behind a lot of the shamanic drumming thoughts, is that you're moving the energy. It relates to like the first thing we ever heard was our mom's heartbeat when we were in the womb. And so it's a very like primal sound to our human brains. And then for the second part with the crystal balls, it's a kind of a resetting. So I would go clockwise and kind of put the positive intention in there after the release. I don't know, there's a lot that it makes sense to me where the intention behind what you're creating with the sound does impact the action of that sound.
Well, and I would think too, a lot of people think this is like just as wackadoo as I did when I first started learning it. But when I started learning how to cook, and specifically, the culinary school that I went to was for cooking for food and it was for food and healing, right? And so learning to cook for people with heart disease, diabetes, not just like French culinary, cook these delicious foods. And we would cook delicious foods, but the intention was to bring healing to the body. But in the macrobiotic way of cooking and eating, and macrobiotic is just this way of healing that addresses the whole person, right? It's if you stir it one way, you're going to create more contractive food, that will create more contractive energy in the body. Or if you stir it so it's clockwise is contractive, and then counterclockwise is expansive, right? So how you stir food, and it's like silly was when I watch people cook, most people have no intention and they're stirring just like sporadically or erratically, right? No idea, realizing that that's creating erratic energy inside of them, by
That's
the food that they ingest. And again, I'm the person who's like, this stuff is all wackadoo, but I'm so intentional when I cook about like which way I'm stirring things, because it does
never heard that, but makes sense to me.
Right.
Huh.
Yep. Yeah. And the how you cook a food is going to be different, like whether it's given expansive energy or contractive energy. So you can have kale, right? Here's just one food. And if you bake it, it's going to have a different type of energy than if you steam it in water, right? And it's going to do completely different things within the body, depending on how you cook that certain food.
That makes sense. I think I do a lot of, I do like to think when I make homemade food for people, I try to lovingly cook the food. I never have heard of the direction of your stirring or whether baking but I do definitely intend to put love into the food that I'm cooking for people that I care about. Mm-hmm. And, I'd be like, can you taste the love I put into this food? I definitely think that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Yeah. That's super fascinating.
Yeah. So what for you, since you started just diving deeper into sound therapy and in sound baths and using this, what benefits have you noticed in your life?
For me, I do use these on myself. I just find it to be, I actually do, I'll share some nerdy little exercises that I like to do using the bowls, again, with kind of the releasing and setting intentions piece, is if I notice there's, before we got on, we talked a little bit off the air on shadow work. I'll tease one of our future episodes that we talked about. But for me, when I discover there's something in me, okay, I have a little bit more work to do around this idea. I find, one of my little shadow pieces that I want to get rid of or something. I actually have this paper, special paper, that I would write what I want to release on. Actually, I'll tell you a couple different things you can do with the bowls and the sound medicine. But if it's something that's related to a particular chakra. So say, for example, I have just noticed, this is true story personally. I've just noticed some of the work I still have to do around relationships, right? Noticing some of my shadows and my beliefs about relationships and love and stuff like that. So after we get off of this call later tonight, have every intention of doing this little ceremony for myself. So I will take this. I have this paper that dissolves in water. So I write the thing that I want to let go of on the piece of paper. I fill, if it's the heart chakra bowl, I'll fill it up with water. I'd like to, I don't know that it matters whether you use tap water or not. But I'm not going to consume it. If I'm going to consume it, certainly I wouldn't use tap water, but fill it with water. Really doesn't matter what kind. Sometimes I buy distilled water just because I feel like I don't want the water to already have some intention in it or whatever. You can put water in those bowls and then run them around. And I would do the counterclockwise if I'm trying to release. And that paper actually, it just begins to dissolve. It's cool when you do these with water inside. You will notice the water almost boils because it's vibrating. It creates little bubbles, and actually, if you on the bigger bowls, it will sound like rain, the water bubbling in there. And so then I would, do the drumming, release, whatever, and then infuse that water with a proper intention, and then I might put it in my bathtub and take a bath, or I mean, just silly stuff for me. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say it's silly.
Right.
It works for me. How it works for me, I don't know. Don't care. Just works.
Right.
But you can also use these bowls to tune water for the plants, or if you do want to drink it, as long as you should never do it in a Tibetan bowl because the metals can get into the water, but in the crystal bowls, it's fine. But yeah, then I would definitely take purified distilled water, or filtered water. If you're going to consume it afterward, make sure you use clean water and make sure your bowl is clean. But you can infuse that water with the intention of love, or if you want to work on the root chakra and grounding, you can do that. Or like if I wanted intention, healthy growth, if I'm going to give that water to my plants. Yes, I do sometimes do that for my plants. Super nerd.
No, I have this disc that was supposed to be implanted with certain frequencies, and I have that under my my water filter, and
okay.
So my water gets filtered and then has that disc as well. And I have had people taste test the water like with and without it, and people notice a difference. They're like, it feels like cleaner and more pure, like more clear.
Yeah, I'd be curious what that disc is. I haven't heard of that. Yeah, I mean, I really do think that there's truth to that, and if people want to dismiss it, fine. The thing is, with sound medicine, because there's a lot of things, and like even with the energy medicine, it's an awesome complement to the energy medicine. The stuff that we do with releasing trapped emotions, this can certainly facilitate that. But sometimes I've noticed with the energy work piece, like if I'm doing the energy work and someone truly doesn't believe in it, they often don't notice that there's been any benefit. I will put the caveat in that half the time I'm like, well, I noticed you've changed, but it's cool that you haven't noticed.
Which is why I always do ratings and have them rate that reason.
Yeah, totally. But with the sound therapy, you cannot believe in it all you want. It's still going to give you the medicine. It's still going to, it's going to have that effect on you. It's sound.
Right.
Like it's there, and whether or not you can even hear it, because that's the other thing. An ultrasound, do you know that an ultrasound that we've just accepted now as something that we use in medicine is sound vibrations that creates it's high frequency sound. We don't hear it because it's so high, but it's vibrating, and that's what's creating this image.
And you just said something. So like I'm going to, I know you know this, but I'm going to the Bahamas the beginning of June, the end of this month, the beginning of June. 27 days I leave, and to swim with wild dolphins. And dolphins are all about like sending frequencies, like that's how they communicate. Somebody was telling me the other day, I might get this a bit wrong probably, but like whales, like they can send out frequencies, right? And to other whales that are in like all the way across the other side of the ocean, and they totally like get the message.
Yeah.
And we like animals, trees, like they do this all the time. We just are so disconnected from it. So
everything is vibrating. You're right. We are disconnected from it. And in our human brains that we think are so evolved, if we can't see it, touch it, smell it, taste it, like we don't think it exists.
Or sell it.
But yeah, or sell it. Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. But no, it's there. And I mean, it's when you and I have done this energy medicine, and it is nuts, because I mean, we've probably said it several times on this show now, but we've never even freaking met in person. You've done a gazillion sessions on me in the past. Right. And how the heck that works, I don't actually know, but it's working on the vibrational field, right? Yeah. Like everything's out there vibrating. And I mean, we've all had the experience of, you think of your friend that you haven't talked about or talked to in a month, and 5 minutes later they call you, right?
Right.
Like those are not coincidences.
Right. Right. Yeah. I want to see if I can Okay, I don't know. I'm going to once again try to share my screen, but I don't know how that'll work because I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but I think this is really cool. Share, not a share screen. Okay, let's see. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
So this over here to the right, just imagine that being a person. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that like I got from Dr. Joe Dispenza's work when I was at his workshop. And so if you look
really small on my screen,
it just got really small. Okay. Did it get bigger?
Okay,
there we go. Okay. So if you look over here, again, this is a person, and these circles are the chakras or energy centers in the body. And for anybody who's listening, like energy centers, like if you're like, oh, chakras are a bunch of woo-woo stuff, right? Like we all have an endocrine system, and there's different parts of the endocrine system. Right. So we have our sexual organs, our digestive organs, our adrenals, like our energy organs, our adrenals, our kidneys. And then we have our heart. Then we have our throat, like our thyroid. We have our third eye, which I have pineal, and then our crown. Totally forgetting endocrine wise what the crown is connected to right now. Totally blanking on that one. But when you look, these three energy centers, the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus, are all connected to the physicality, right? Our sex, digestion, and energy. Right? And the frequencies tend to be more of, and I don't know if you can see the words, but like words of guilt and lack and suffering. And this is when somebody is stuck living in these emotions, right? And as you get up more in these, when you have this, and also this is like a place of separateness, right? So when people feel like they're completely separate from the world, they feel completely like not connected to other people, right? They're living in these emotions, right? And as Joe explains it, he's like, I'm somebody, like I'm someone, I'm something, I'm someplace, I'm sometime. Like they're very defined, right, by who they are, where they're from, etc. And that's when people live in an incoherent state, right? Incoherent is like the word of like disharmony, dis-ease, right? But then when you go up more into the quantum field and go from like the heart and above, right, the frequencies, you see that they start getting like shifting in how they are, and you get to the place where you can live in a state of like, I'm everybody, like I am you, you are me, right? I'm one, like I'm there is no lack, there is no separation, right? And we're living in a place of coherence versus like incoherence and disease. Down here is a place of survival, up here is a place of creation, right? When you feel like you can never get anything done and you're just constantly like surviving and living in scarcity, it's because the frequencies are so stuck down here, and we really want to be able to flow in and out from all of these, not just from one. And I will say conversely too, that there are some people that live in this state all the time, like their head's in the clouds so much, and they're so focused on like, having these like otherworldly experiences, or I heard growing up, like somebody's so heavenly minded that they're no earthly good, like they'll talk about God, Jesus, and like, all this stuff all the time, but like they're not doing any good here in the world, right? And it's the same thing within like the spiritual community too. Like some people are so woo, like that you're like, can't even connect with them. But when you these like frequencies, it's crazy because when we're stuck in these low level frequencies, there are emotions that are connected to it. And just like we talked about with music, like you think about certain music, you can feel an emotion, like you don't have to have any words to it. Like listening to the music though creates those emotions.
Right.
I'm going to stop screen sharing this if I remember how.
Classical chart. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because yesterday I was talking to a friend, and I was like, we were walking somewhere, and there was a picture of George Michael, and I was saying how much I loved George Michael all growing up. And then I was like, but I grew up in these, I played them. Then I got in the car and I played the song One More Try by George Michael. I don't even remember, but it's a totally depressing song. And I'm like, well, this is why I've lost much of my life, because all the music I grew up with, like Chicago, REO Speedwagon, like all of these sad, sappy songs, right? It's the frequency of sadness. I'm
I
like,
guess I love REO Speedwagon.
I know, but like none of them are sad and sappy. You know, if you grew up in like the 80s-ish, it's like all these love songs, like I'm gonna die without you. And it's like those frequencies are very sad and depressing.
Yeah. That's funny. Of course, my brain always goes to, oh, please, God, get it together. I like those songs more for nostalgia, I guess, than necessarily buying into the whole lyrics of pining for someone who doesn't want you. Just move on.
And I can feel my body just all of a sudden go back into that frequency and be like, oh yeah, I totally remember that feeling. And then to go back in there, because it's like, it's a memory, right? That just and like you said at the beginning, like how water has, you know, like water carries frequencies. I know I talk about it all the time, like Frozen 2, where Olaf is like, water has memories. And I'm like,
yes,
so smart. It's so true.
Yes. Yeah, but that is part of it, because we are so much water. And when we can really create a shift there, we can start to release all those memories, all that trapped garbage. Which again, I will say, I do think that this, and as a companion to the body code, emotion code work, and really, you know, getting into that subconscious. I mean, the more tools we can use to get deep down and work with that root stuff, you know, going back to the idea of how this compares to using drugs to heal an ailment.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, this we've talked about a lot, and I think anybody that's listening to us isn't going to disagree. Rather than masking a symptom and not asking why you're having the symptom, we're addressing the root cause of your issue and your ailment, and we're fixing it at the root versus, oh, you have a sore toe? Let's just put a Band-Aid on your toe and let's not find out why you keep kicking the door.
Right. Right. But, and that's so like, our culture just wants a quick fix.
Right.
You know, and it's like doing some of these like alternative methods, people don't want because it takes longer. You know, they're like, I just give me the pill. I don't want to feel the thing anymore. But it's like, well, you're actually going to feel it longer because you haven't actually healed the thing. Like you may not, but it's going to pop its ugly, like rear its ugly head back up again in some other place if you don't address the root thing.
Right.
I'm with you. It's and I think these things are all great. So it's sometimes people don't want to take the longer route to get the lasting change. They want the short route, but you don't get lasting change.
Right. But I will say, even if you can only do one sound bath in your whole entire lifetime, you will find an immediate benefit right there. You know, obviously anything, when you keep working with it, you know, you'll get to those happier, more fulfilling places, and it will allow you to help remain there, right? Like you don't ever, I mean, with anything, right? There's a practice. You have to keep going. You don't do this once, everything's magically healed and you never have to do it again. But, you know, a sound bath or a sound therapy session does immediately create a shift. And I mean, I had people, the last time I did one, a week later, I had a couple people still reach out to me and they were like, oh my gosh, so many things came at me this week. It was crazy. I'm so grateful that I started with that sound bath on Monday night, because I'm not sure that I would have been in a good place to handle everything that came at me this week. So, you know, it is something that has an immediate benefit and a long-term benefit. So, I mean, and then there's no downside. There's no downside. The only thing is, maybe if you're a really highly active person, you might find it boring, but you are also probably the person that needs it the most. I say that all the time when I teach like Yin Yoga classes. Yin Yoga is one of my favorite styles to teach these days. I used to be only flow. I really love to move, which I love to take flow classes. I also love to take yin classes, but teaching yin, especially when I teach with people that are typically like, you know, go, go, go kind of athletes, always wanting to move faster, lift heavier, do more. I'm like, sitting for 45 minutes in this class, and it's not even a whole hour, sitting here and holding a stretch for 5 minutes and kind of being with your thoughts is probably going to be the hardest workout you've done all week. But those people are the ones that benefit the most from putting themselves in that position because they never turn off. So especially if you never allow yourself a quiet mind, a quiet space, a time to just be present and feel, really feel what's happening within you. Then, if that's your normal day to day, just try a sound bath and see what that does for you. And I mean, certainly if anybody's local and wants to hire me to do one, I'm happy to do it. If that's not in the cards, just Google them on YouTube. You can find them. You can find one that you can experience with headphones. I prefer to do them in person. I haven't done any online. I feel like I like the benefit of being with people when I do it. But there are plenty of practitioners that offer them online, so you can find them.
So before we wrap up, is there any other anything else you want to show us or have us?
Any other little tricks?
How to hear, like?
Oh yeah, we could do a little Koshi chime. This guy is fun. It really sounds good. So this I would typically, I would circulate around the room with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I like to take that and I walk around the room and kind of, shower it over everyone. We can do the buffalo drum for a second. Should have done it before, maybe the relaxing.
Love going to drum
circle. Yeah. This might upset your dog. It makes my rabbits go a little bonkers. They're like, what the hell is that?
Well, he is sound asleep. I'm just going to turn the video just to see.
Yeah, let's see what he does. No. Unfazed.
Yeah.
Completely unfazed. Well, that's good.
He do drum circles with me, and he just will sit there. And, there's lots of loud drumming going on, and he just will lay down and just listen.
Oh, so see, he's used to it.
Yeah.
He's used to it. My rabbits are not a big fan of, I think because it sounds like when rabbits thump, they're like, what's going on? What's going on? Who's trying to warn us? Yeah, I have to do that. I'm about as far away from them as I could be and still be in the same house. I don't when I first got it, I was testing it out down there and they were like, they were so freaked out.
So, what is there anything in particular that you think that the sound bath is good for? Any particular kinds of trauma that you think a sound bath is good for healing that is more beneficial to others? Or is it just anyone that's needing any kind of sense of release and relaxation for their nervous system?
I would honestly say anyone with any amount of ailment can benefit from it. There are certainly reports of it being extremely beneficial for anxiety. So I was just talking to a friend this past weekend about truly experiencing an anxiety attack. And I'm like, now I know I've never truly experienced that. I don't know. I've had anxious feelings. I've never had an anxiety attack. Because I think it's a pretty traumatic thing for people that do experience them. But I haven't worked directly with somebody to try to, help an anxiety or a panic attack with sound therapy. But I've seen reports that actually is something that's beneficial. And a lot of times, especially if you've got spiraling thoughts, it's because it just can kind of train your mind. Because even just taking, I also have these little tingsha bells, just go ting. Or the gong or something like that. If just something that's a striking sound, and then you just have to kind of follow it to fade out, because it just gives your mind something to busy itself, especially if you're in a spiral of worry and fear. So I think it's extremely good for that. But there's lots and lots of ailments that I think it would be helpful or I mean, I've seen that it's truly helpful for.
Yeah.
So.
I think at the end of the day, whatever dis-ease is in the body, like at the end of the day, we'll give labels, but the dis-ease is a dysregulated nervous system, and the sound frequencies help to regulate the nervous system, which then the symptoms of whatever label we've put on those symptoms, because that's all label is saying like, oh, well, we take this clump of symptoms and we'll call it this, right? It's how we file it in our mind, and it will come down to doing this work will come down to calming the nervous system. And that's why this work, what I love about it, like I'm running the Healy on a client, and she's like, it's crazy because we have the intention of running on this one thing, but she's like, these other things are starting to change.
Because it will find the thing that it needs to find.
Right.
I do think that. I also saw some studies for fibromyalgia, which I know is something that's very hard to treat because it's so mysterious. People don't really know what's causing it. But there's a lot of studies that are showing that sound therapy is very helpful for removing at least the pain of fibromyalgia. And I don't know a lot about it, not a doctor. There's all my disclaimers, but I think a lot of that is it's really your thoughts.
Yeah. And again, I'm just saying, just my experience with people with fibromyalgia, there has always been some kind of heavy trauma and sexual trauma, right? And that gets lodged into our systems hugely. And again, those are just all the people that's the commonality that I've seen all the people that I've worked with. And that's, your nervous system is so on edge at that point because, well, it needs, it's like it's wanting to protect itself. And so
exactly.
It makes sense, that these frequencies. So you said that somebody can either like locally, if they're in the Phoenix area, reach out to you or not, like look on YouTube. And one of the things, like you can look up, like, I think it's like 528 hertz frequencies. Right?
The solfeggio frequencies. I play those a lot off of, I just on Spotify find them. And I actually do play those while I sleep a lot. Anecdotally, I think they do help me. Oftentimes if there's an intention that I'm trying to work with, because I'm pretty much always trying to work on something, I might find one on, that's specific to that intention. But then there's also ones that are just like general DNA upgrade. I mean, whether they actually do anything, I don't know, but I mean, I feel pretty good. And I mean, I like it also just because I back up to a street that has a fair amount of traffic. Oftentimes my daughter is up later than me talking on the phone or something. So it's also just something, I don't play them very loud at all, but it's just something to kind of, I don't know, drown out all the other junk that's going on. And you know what? All the plants in my bedroom are incredibly healthy too. So maybe they're benefiting from that as well.
Yeah. Another one is, I don't have Spotify, but I use Apple Music. Hemisync is also a good one too. They have a lot of like frequencies too.
I haven't looked that up. You mentioned that to me before and I forgot to look it up. Is that one like binaural beats kind of?
Yeah. And I don't understand it totally when I get back from the Bahamas, because there's going to be somebody there doing that in the Bahamas. So Bahamas is going to be so much frequency stuff between frequencies of dolphins, frequencies of sound, like of music, the sync stuff, like a lot of frequency stuff. But they're good. And I notice when I listen to their stuff, I feel like I wake up feeling, just much more rested than not. So
I'm gonna have to look that one up.
Yeah.
There's one last thing I will give. Go ahead.
Nope, you go.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, another piece of the sound that doesn't have to be all of these tools, but you can do this with your own body and your own voice, whether or not you're a good singer, that is completely irrelevant. But even just like, the Om frequency, or if you look up Dr. Wayne Dyer's meditation, like he has that whole thing where you just, you feel like a fool, but you're vibrating yourself from the inside, and he is guiding you through some intentions behind every single one of those. And that, I actually haven't practiced that one in a while. I need to do that one. But again, it's something free you can find on YouTube. It is a very powerful practice. Really does make you feel immediately different.
And I know you're going to be like, oh, Heather, there she goes again. And I should say, if you are doing that, like the ohms or the ahs or just that exhale, and you're doing it when you're intimate with somebody, holy shnikes. Like, it is crazy how that connects.
Someday I'll try that.
Put it on your list. Like, to find a
Put it
guy.
on my list. Well, okay, where's the somebody that wants to do that with me?
I know, and you just like literally connect with your breathing at the same pace, and you're just both like releasing that tone. I'm telling you, oh my gosh, it is.
Well, because if you think about it, we have to watch our time. If we cap it an hour here. But I don't know. This is going to be totally different tangent, and it's my own little wacky way of thinking. But I think that connecting with another human that way is a way to get closer to source energy. So that's why that feels so powerful.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
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 So on that
On
note,
that loving note.
yes, go and check out different sound frequencies. Just explore it and just notice how it feels in your body. Notice where you feel tension, where you feel expansion. Notice, notice how, if it makes you feel lighter, if it makes you feel freer and more contractive. And there may be something, you may listen to these frequencies that are supposed to be these higher level frequencies, and you might feel like, oh, that doesn't feel good. And that could be that there's some energy that's stuck inside of you. That's like, because like it's stuck energy and it's battling against those higher level frequencies, right? We got to clear that stuff out so that you can resonate, right, with the higher resonance. So it's a fun thing to explore, even though I'm still always like, really, I'm going to go to the sound bath and it's going to do something. But as you say, it always does. And one day
We should make you go to one and come back and report.
I've gone to them. I've gone to a couple this year already. I love them. I can fall asleep though. But
Yeah.
that's like,
Totally okay though. Falling asleep is fine. It's still going to do what you need for it to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
but one day I'll get out there and go to one of yours.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay. Thanks everybody for listening. Next week we will see you. We're gonna have hopefully have someone on to talk about another interesting topic. So check us back next week, and we will talk to you all later.
Bye.